Well, good morning, everyone. If you are new here, or maybe you just forgot who I am, that's okay too. My name is Brandon. I'm the youth pastor here at All Nations Church. And what comes along with that is a lot of great privilege in being in the lives of so many young people, but also to arguably come up with the most fun events possible. Unfortunately, Pastor Sean doesn't get that luxury. Unless Sean wants to do a church-wide scavenger hunt, I think that'd be fun. But I'll leave that in his capable hands. But as Pastor John was saying, yes, 2 Fridays from now, we are doing a citywide scavenger hunt. We need drivers for it. No, you don't need to have a police check, but you will be taking 2 to 3 students around the city to find various things. It might be taking photos of some stuff. It might be, I don't know, one of the things is I'm pretty sure taking a picture of or bringing the largest thing that you can find. So those with trucks, you're great for this. But it truly is a competition between the adults as well as the youth. I've seen many, I wouldn't call it grudges, but certainly some friendly competitions happen between adults. Although, don't break the speed limit. I said it from stage, which means if anyone ever gets caught, I can say that I told you not to speed. Please follow all directions of the road. But also, youth, if you are in grade 7 to 12, or you're a parent of someone in grade 7 to 12, this is a great event to sign them up for. If you're interested in that, come chat with me. We'd love to get your youth connected. So today, the other part of my job, other than youth pastor, is as our life groups director here. And so, Julie and I, as some of you know, finished our degrees at the end of July. So we're very happy about that because it was taking so much time out of our schedule. But one of the most interesting classes we got to take was pastoral care. And this was a week-long online class, which means we sat on Zoom from 9 to 4, Monday to Friday. It was exhausting. But the point of the class ended up being, hey, we all have responsibility as Christians to care for each other, but that's not the point of this sermon. Instead, they had us do probably one of the most challenging exercises I've ever had to do in my life. And I'm a pretty talkative guy. If you've met me, I can talk to a wall and probably not have a big issue with it. And one of the tasks that we had to do to prepare us on how to dig deeper with those that we're speaking to was we were paired with a stranger in the class, and we had to ask them questions for 5 minutes about the same topic. So, how are you? You say good. You then say, why was it good? And then you keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And as I said, pretty chatty guy, I struggled with this so much because we're fairly shallow when we talk to each other, if we're being honest. We kind of like to keep it a little bit surface level, but we had to dig. Oh, you work? Oh, where do you work? What do you enjoy about it? What do you hate about it? And literally, the other classmate would time you as you kept talking to them. And you get about minute 3 before you start to feel like maybe you're running out of things, and what do you talk about next? And it was really this interesting display of how easy it is for us to remain shallow. And then I decided I would do something similar with my small group. So I ran a life group over the summer, and I decided, okay, I'm not going to make them talk to the same person for 5 minutes and only talk about the same topic, because as it is, my mom, who was a part of the group, said, talking to a stranger is awful, Brandon. How could you make me do that? But I did make them talk to the same person, a stranger, for 5 minutes. And you should have seen some of the looks I got. And so you should be happy because there was a part of me, I'll be brutally honest with you, if John hadn't done that, hey, greet your neighbor, I was thinking, oh, maybe I should do that to the entire church. So, you lucked out. Make sure you thank Pastor John on the way out, that you weren't forced to talk to a stranger for 5 minutes. But today we are going to talk about something. And we're going to talk about a struggle that can elicit some shame, some embarrassment, and it's really serious. In fact, the Surgeon General of the United States of America issued an 80-page advisory naming this the single biggest threat facing mental and physical health in America. And of course, then, because we're always one step behind, this was mirrored by a similar statement from the Chief Medical Officer of Health for Ontario. It's more dangerous to our physical health than diabetes, than smoking 14 cigarettes a day. And that problem is loneliness. We've all felt it, and for our purposes today, we're defining it as that consistent psychological state that arises when we lack the intimate and authentic relationships that we need to thrive. And guess what? More than 40% of Canadians would say that they are severely lonely. 60% of Canadians will say that they have no sense of community. And here's how we know there's still some shame and stigma attached to it, is that while over 40% of people feel it, less than 12% of people will admit to it and talk about it openly. So here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to ask you to stand up if you're lonely or if you have no sense of community, because I know only 12% of you will tell me the truth. I am going to ask you if you have a last name from starting with the letter A all the way to P to stand up. So A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. There, that's... Now, according to statistics, about 60% of people have last names starting with A to P. So as you look around, statistically, this is how many people are lonely, have no sense of community. That should scare us. You can sit back down. I don't need 60% of you standing for the entire sermon. I think that'd be a pretty good image, but I don't know. So that to me scares me, right? This is our church. This is our school community. This is our employees, our volunteers, our neighborhood. And I think that, really I need to start by saying, before I say anything else, is that if you feel lonely, you are not alone in feeling alone. You are not lonely because you're not successful enough or because you're not super attractive. I don't need that graph yet. It's a great graph, but I don't need it just yet. You're not unlucky or unworthy or unlikable or unlovable. You don't need to feel ashamed or embarrassed because our loneliness is not an accusation of our unworthiness. It is simply a signal. It is our mind that is telling us that something isn't working. Your body is honoring the way that God created you by raising a red flag and saying something isn't right. There's more we can do. We need to make some changes. And loneliness is not a you or a me problem. It's not something for, the government to solve or for the church to solve or anything like that. It is truly an us problem because it's our collective loneliness, and it is a result of a culture that everyone in this room are co-creating and building and designing together. This isn't actually something that somebody else is doing to you. We are, as a society, replacing our front porches with attached garages and bigger lot sizes and seeing our neighbors less than we've ever seen them before. I Julie and I bought a house when we got married, and I maybe know the name of one of our neighbors. Okay. I've put out a fire. One of the guys across the street lit his fence on fire and then went to the basement and didn't realize it. I put out the fire with Julia, and we still don't know his name. You'd think that you would meet someone by doing that, but nope, still don't know his name. We are keeping our faces on our phones and on social media. We're relying on things like DoorDash and Amazon. And before we get too far, let me just say, this is not like, oh, young people are so awful. Young people, get off your iPhones because you're the worst thing ever. Because I know for a fact that someone like my mother, who is not a young adult, who is middle-aged, we'll put it that way, right, has her dog food on an automatic schedule to get delivered to her house. So it's not a, oh, young people are just so attached to Amazon. It is all of us. We are all guilty of this. We are designing an entire culture with the primary values of convenience, of independence, of privacy, of comfort. And while none of these things are inherently wrong, when we choose to prioritize certain values over others, we are going to get certain results. And I want to take a look at one of those results. Now I want my graph. This is the look at the rapid decline in time spent with friends. An increase in time spent alone per week that we have seen just in the last decade. In 2010, adults were spending about 6.5 hours a week with their friends. Just one decade later, and you can see this really starts to accelerate around 2012, which, by the way, is when smartphone penetration hit 50%. Indication, perhaps. But that has decreased in less than 10 years by 59% to about 2 hours a week, and it's impacting all of us. Every age group and demographic in Canada is saying that we are lonelier than ever before. 70% of people in leadership, bosses, managers, pastors, would say that they're lonely. I read a particularly worrying statistic that said that less than 1 out of every 5, so less than 20% of moms feel like they can trust their community with their faults and their weaknesses. That scares me. I'm not a mom. Julia will be one day. This is not a pregnancy announcement. Don't go ask her. Okay? I literally told myself this morning that I wasn't going to say this, but I'm just saying it. This is not a pregnancy announcement. But that scares me because I know one day my wife will be a mom, and it scares me that it says that she likely will not feel comfortable sharing her weaknesses with somebody. Men in particular are 5 times lonelier in their friendship than they were in 1990. And get this is probably one of the most alarming things in terms of statistics that we see. Our young people are now lonelier than the infirm, than those who are forced to stay in their house or stay in the hospital. Young people are lonelier than them. Right? That should scare us. Something is going wrong. And there is a really dangerous epidemic going on. There is a great need. And there is also an incredible opportunity for us as believers to simply live according to God's design for each one of us. In a world full of really lonely, isolated people, I cannot imagine a greater witness than to live in a way that prioritizes connection and community in radically caring and knowing and showing up for one another. And yet, look around. We are all in rows. And I think pastors like rows. I like rows. Rows keep us grounded. It keeps us organized. Everyone's looking the same way for 30 to 35 minutes. But here's the thing. When I study Scripture and I reflect on my own experience as a pastor, I see that the early church spent very little time staring at the back of people's heads. Worse, especially if you're short and the person in front of you is tall. Instead, the picture we get is far more about circles than rows. Rows are fine, but circles are better. And we're going to see why in Acts chapter 2. So if you brought your Bible and you want to turn, scroll, however it is you get there, feel free to do so. We'll be camping here for the rest of the day. But for context, by this point, Jesus has been crucified, buried, resurrected, and ascended. And now, God is beginning something new. Acts 2 marks a huge shift. God has been working through Israel, but now he is working through something called the church. And so we're going to start in verse 32 today. It says this: they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give away to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. In the 41 verses before Acts 42, we see the Holy Spirit come, Peter preach an incredible sermon, and 3,000 people respond with faith and baptism. Now, right, if we kind of hone in, we look at verse 46. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. The early church met in rows, just like we do on Sundays, and they loved it. But more than that, they were in each other's homes. They were sharing meals. They were living their life together daily. This was more than a once-a-week event. It was real community. I believe this life in circles accomplished at least 4 things for the early church: spiritual, physical, emotional, and missional growth. The first way the early church lived in community was spiritually. Acts 2:42 says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. The word devote here is really significant in the original language. It's not a one-time verb. When we think about devotion or a vow, we sometimes picture one decision, one statement, man and wife standing across from each other, giving each other the vows, something we do once. But the Greek word means to continue steadfastly, to give unremitting care to something, constantly, continually. They pursued God day after day, but their pursuit was not solitary. They didn't treat faith as an individual hobby. They learned, prayed, and celebrated together. This passage also uses the word fellowship, and if you grew up in church, specifically like United, Anglican type churches, when you hear the word fellowship, you might think of the word fellowship hall, where that was code for me as a child. I grew up in the United Church. That was code for me as the place with snacks, because they would probably have juice and snacks after, which I loved. But fellowship is much richer than just socializing over coffee and cookies. It means doing life together. The 12th century English monk Aelred called it spiritual friendship. Yes, Bible studies, hikes, and coffee dates are fellowship, but fellowship also goes beyond our planned gatherings. Let's be honest, okay? Let me ask this, who's the type of person who tells their friends to stop by any time? Who's ever posted something on Facebook? Because I've seen it on Facebook. They'll like, hey, if you ever want to stop by, I have a coffee ready, tea ready to go. Okay, some of us are like that. Some of us are very hospitable and would have no problem just opening the door to, someone wandering into our house. For others, me, stop by any time actually means let's put it in the Google Calendar, let's write it on the wall, let's make sure you call first. I need at least an hour. Okay? I need to clean up after pets. I need to, make sure I don't have a random shirt laying somewhere in the kitchen. I need to make sure my life is perfect before letting you in. But real fellowship is letting someone into your life when there's some laundry on the floor, when there's dishes in the sink, and maybe the baby's crying. It's when your friend shows up after your parent dies, when you're sick and someone brings you soup. It's getting up early for breakfast to pray and confess sins together. It's seeing each other on the good days and the bad, day in and day out. And Andy Stanley, a pastor in the States, says, your friends determine the quality and the direction of your life. If you look at the 5 people closest to you in your life, some of us, maybe that number is closer to 3, right? They will determine the direction that you're heading. Fellowship isn't just a hall in a church building or even just what we do on Sundays. Although that matters, it's inviting someone into your life even at its messiest. The second way they lived in this community, this early church, was physically. If we read verse 44, it says, all the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had a need. By following the apostles' teachings, the early church was mimicking the most generous man in history, Jesus. Just as Jesus shared all that he had, the first century church lived in such a way that no one among them had a need. And it wasn't forced generosity. It was a response to God's love. God is a generous God. And one of the most powerful expressions is his own to us. One of the most powerful expressions of generosity is him sending his son for us. I remember Julie and I also did a week-long course on small groups. And admittedly, we learned a lot. Some of what we learned was just in our chats after the class as opposed to what we actually learned in the lectures. But we had 8 hours a day together in a classroom in Toronto. And it was this odd experience because we were all strangers. And we were all a little stressed about the professor's laid-back attitude. He really didn't have things fully together. But all of a sudden, one of the students said that she needed to find a way back to, I think, Etobicoke. We were in Mississauga or Vaughan, somewhere in there. Toronto is not, GTA is not my area of expertise. But they said, I really need to get back. I don't have a car. My sister is currently having a miscarriage. And I really need to find a way back. And so would I be able to miss the rest of the week? And even though we didn't really know each other that well, in fact, some of the people in that class I don't want to take a class with ever again, but the class began to come up with rides. Someone opened up their home to her. All of a sudden, there was an offering going around to make sure that they could pay for meals for the family for the next week. And for me, it was this really crazy experience of going, this is what, as Christians, we're called to do. We are called to fill those needs, even if maybe we don't like the person all that much. Even if I don't even remember her name. Let me put it that way. I have no idea what this woman's name was. She's very nice, but haven't a clue. It was for me this realization that true community and love for each other should extend past the friends we have. And All Nations Church has, for its entire history, I've only been a part of its history for 6 years, but we have always been focused on how can we meet needs. That's why we ran the backpack drive a few weeks ago. We were able to give a backpack to every single kid affiliated with Big Brothers Big Sisters who needed one. That's a big deal. And then, not to call you out, I don't know where you are in the room, but I had a guy walk up to me today and say, "Hey, I have a backpack." And honestly, I thought, oh, okay, it's someone who took a name and was a little bit delayed. Okay, let me go run out and grab the backpack so I can deliver it. He goes, "Oh, I think I have about 20 of them." And I went, "Okay, we will use that. We will make sure that we are meeting needs in our community." And circles allow us to meet the needs of those across from us. Circles allow us to stand together in battle. Think of a time when you were in that middle of a struggle and someone you had done life with stepped into the fight alongside you. Someone who linked their shield with yours and said, "We'll get through this together." That doesn't happen in rows. That happens in circles. The third way they lived in community was emotionally. Verse 46 says, "They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people." Years ago, PBS commissioned a study to explore the connection between relationships, not like dating, but like relationships with other people, and happiness. Out of that research came a documentary called This Emotional Life. It said researchers have found that people are happier when they are with other people than when they are alone. And this boost is the same for introverts and extroverts. Being around people makes us happier. And when we are happier, we are more pleasant to be around, creating an upward spiral of happiness. I love that image, an upward spiral of happiness. And depression has often been described as this downward spiral of discouragement, but doing life together pulls us upwards. If the last, 5 years have taught us anything, it's that we were made to be with each other. Research shows that connection even affects us biologically. It changes our brain chemistry, our neuroplasticity, our health. And yet, many of us run from air-conditioned house to air-conditioned car to our air-conditioned office and all the way back again with only a brief stop for a once-a-week event. Then we wonder why we're feeling disconnected. The final way, the fourth way, was missionally. Verse 47 says, "And the Lord added to their number daily those who are being saved." Circles help us live on mission, not just for our growth, but for the sake of others. I thank God for this building and what happens here. I think it's amazing. But Sunday gatherings are meant to equip us for the work that we're doing outside of the church. It's meant to equip us for our neighborhoods, our schools, our workplaces. And notice the early church saw people added to their number daily. And guess what? You can't know that unless you're actually connecting daily. If Jesus spent 12 hours a day for 3 years with his disciples, that's over 13,000 hours. And even then, they still had a lot to learn. 1 hour a week is not enough to apprentice under Jesus. At the end of this service, you'll have an opportunity to join a life group. And let me be honest, some groups might not be for you. Some groups, you might have even had a bad experience with a life group in the past. I don't hold that against you. But circles are better than rows. Yes, it's intimidating to walk into a stranger's house. It might even be intimidating to walk into the church and try to figure out if, these people are cool enough. But circles are still better than rows. You see, Acts 2 is not this really nice description of a social club. It's not the Lions Club, it's not Rotary. It's the result of the gospel taking root in people's lives. These people weren't naturally good people. They were sinners just like you and me, who had been transformed by Jesus Christ. They had heard the message that Peter had preached earlier in the chapter, that though we had all turned away from God, Jesus came to rescue us. He lived the life that we couldn't live, died the death that we deserved, and rose again to give us new life. And when they believed that, when they put their trust in him, their hearts were changed. They began to love God and love each other in ways the world had never seen before. And here's the truth. You will never find the kind of deep, lasting community we're talking about unless it's built on that same foundation. You can be surrounded by people and still feel empty if you're not first reconciled with God. The first and most important step towards true connection is by being brought into relationship with Jesus Christ. So maybe today you've been feeling that loneliness that we've been talking about. Not just from people, but maybe from God. Maybe you've been keeping him at a distance. And the Bible says, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. If you turn to him, put your trust in him, and receive his forgiveness, you will be brought into that family of God, a family that will never leave you or forsake you. And once you're part of his family, you are not meant to live life alone. You're meant to walk with others, to have people who know you, love you, pray with you, and help you grow. And that's why we do life groups here at All Nations Church. It's not just another church program. It's not an excuse to have someone on staff. They're a place where we can live out what we read in Acts 2, devoting ourselves to God's word, breaking bread together, sharing our lives, meeting needs, and encouraging each other on mission. So I'm going to invite the worship team back up, but my invitation to you today is twofold. First, if you've never trusted Jesus, if you've never put your faith in him, do that today. Step into that relationship with him. And second, if you have, then take the next step into deeper relationship with his people. This season, we're very excited about the range of groups that we're offering. We have groups on fear and worry. We have, Pastor Jerry's leading a group on The Chosen. I'm leading a group myself, doing a Bible study on 1st and 2nd Peter. We have a group that meets online, if that's a problem. We have groups for men. We have a Wednesday morning group for women. They're going to start meeting at the beginning of November, so, mark that on your calendars. There's a group for families where kids are welcome to come. There's even a young adults group, 18 to 25. Right? We've built these groups so that everyone has a place. And we put such a priority on this as a church that even right now, given the time, right? The kids over in the other building are probably in their small groups right now. Our youth, every single Friday night, is built around small groups. This is an entire church doing this together. But as I close, imagine with me for a second, what if a year from now, you could say, I have a sense of community. I can tell people when I'm struggling. Not because every circumstance in your life has gotten better, but because you now have people who know you, pray with you, and walk through life with you. People who will show up when you call. People who will speak truth into your life when you start to drift. And that's what God intends for his church. And that's what our city needs to see. Because a lonely, disconnected church, a church that rushes in at 10 a.m. and rushes out as soon as communion's over, and never connects with someone in between, will never connect, will never share the gospel with the Sudbury community. The enemy loves isolated Christians because an isolated Christian is easy to discourage, easy to pick off, but a believer surrounded by a circle of faith-filled friends is dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. And that's why I'm pleading with you. Don't settle for a Sunday morning faith. Don't settle to sit in rows. The early church knew that. Jesus himself lived that way, with a circle of his disciples that he ate with, prayed with, and he sent on mission. And that's why today I'm asking you, make that decision. Don't say, I'm going to take a form and then maybe in a few weeks I'll think about it. Think about it right now. I will stand at that booth out there as long as it's required for you to think about it. Don't let fear and busyness or the thought of I'll do it later hold you back, because every week you wait is another week the enemy wins in keeping you disconnected. So let's be the type of church that no one slips through the cracks. Let's be the type of church that supports each other spiritually, physically, emotionally, and missionally, where loneliness has no place and where the gospel is lived out in such a real way, the neighbors say, I want what they have. And so we're going to sing a song in response to that. We're going to sing a song about the true cornerstone that life groups are built on. John?